Hello everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Randy Calistri-Yeh, and today I have a special program of patriotic cello music for the Livingston Public Library. With all of the restrictions from the COVID-19 lockdown, it's not practical to have an in-person concert right now. So I've been working with Katie at the library to figure out what we can do to still be able to get the music out there, and this is what we came up with. A huge thanks to everybody at the Livingston Public Library for their very generous support of the arts during these difficult times and for making this concert possible. So I've played at the Livingston Library a few other times with my wife Millie, who plays the violin. We did some really nice duet music. But today it's all about the cello, and I've arranged several pieces of patriotic music for the cello, and I think that you're really going to enjoy this. We have Memorial Day coming up, we have Flag Day coming up, lots of things to celebrate. I'm going to start not with patriotic tune, but with one of the pieces I usually use for my opening. This is The Entertainer. This is by Scott Joplin, and it's obviously not cello music, it's piano music. It's ragtime music. Scott Joplin was known as the king of ragtime. He wrote 44 piano rags during his life. And in the early 1900s, 19-teens, 1920s, everybody knew his music. Around 1929, people stopped listening to Scott Joplin. A new musical style had come around, a musical style called jazz, and nobody wanted to listen to the old ragtime anymore. Until 1973. And in 1973, something happened that brought ragtime music back. It's a movie that came out that year, starring Paul Newman, a very young Robert Redford. It was The Sting, one of my favorite movies, and it featured the music of Scott Joplin, specifically The Entertainer. And that movie single-handedly brought ragtime music back into the popular culture. So here's my arrangement of The Entertainer. starting off the patriotic music today is the Armed Forces Medley. This is a special arrangement that I wrote for the veterans at the VA hospital in Lyons, New Jersey, where I often volunteer. And it is the 5 official service songs of the 5 branches of the U.S. Armed Forces: the Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard. And it is required when you play these that they must be played in that order: Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. I'm not sure what would happen if I played them in a different order, but I'm not about to take that chance. There's a funny story about the Army song, which is The Army Goes Rolling Along. All the other Armed Forces branches had their own special song, but the Army did not. So in 1948, after World War II, they held a contest to come up with an official song for the Army. And nobody liked any of the entries, so they gave up. And they tried again 10 years later, in 1958, and they invited composers to submit new songs for the Army, and they got over 800 entries. They picked a winner, and then everybody complained that the winning song sounded too much like I've Got a Lovely Bunch of Coconuts, which is a very inappropriate song for the Army. So they threw them all out, started over a third time, and said, forget it, we're just going to take an old Sousa march and use that. So they took the U.S. Field Artillery March by John Philip Sousa, added some words, and that's how they came up with The Army Goes Rolling Along. Here is the Armed Forces Medley. Next we have two wartime songs, the Battle Hymn of the Republic and God Bless America. The Battle Hymn of the Republic is actually quite an old song. It was written during the Civil War, and it had the original tune of John Brown's Body, and then they added new words in 1861 for the Battle Hymn of the Republic. God Bless America is a song that Irving Berlin wrote in 1918 during World War I. He wanted to use it in one of his shows, but it didn't fit very well, so he put it aside and ended up bringing it back in 1938 at the beginning of World War II. And Kate Smith sang the very first performance of this. It became her signature song, and she would sing it everywhere. So, the Battle Hymn of the Republic and God Bless America. Next song is not particularly patriotic, but whenever you do a cello concert, it's always appropriate to put some music by Bach on there. Bach wrote 6 suites of music for solo cello. This is not any of those. This is music that Bach wrote for organ. It is his toccata in D minor. If you've ever watched any of the old monster movies with the mad scientist that's banging away on the organ down in the dungeon, this is the music they play. and it is the most famous music ever written for organ, but we know very little about it. We don't know why Bach wrote the music. He almost always had a reason, but we don't know what the reason was for this one. We don't know when Bach wrote this particular piece of music. It could have been anywhere from his teenage years to the last few years of his life. We're not even completely positive if it was Bach himself that wrote this. There's some speculation that one of his students might have written it. But it is a wonderful piece of music, and I've adapted it for cello. Keep in mind when I'm playing this that a toccata is a show-off piece to let the organist demonstrate how fast his or her fingers can fly across the keyboard, but I've only got 4 fingers that I'm using. The organist has 10 fingers and 2 feet. This is Bach's toccata in D minor. Back to the patriotic music. This is a song that you are probably familiar with, but it's a lot older than you think it is. This is American Patrol. It was not written by Glenn Miller in 1942. He did a swing version of this song in 1942, but the original song dates all the way back to 1885, and it was written by Frank Meacham. And American Patrol. A patrol is a musical style that was very popular in the late 1800s, and the music is supposed to sound like a military band in a parade, and it starts off way off in the distance, very quiet, and you can hear it get closer and louder until it's right in front of you, and then it plays all sorts of different popular songs from the time, and then you can hear it sort of fade off into the distance. So this particular version has the song Columbia Gem of the Ocean just tossed into the middle of it. This is American Patrol by Frank Meacham. Next is a set of variations on My Country 'Tis of Thee. Beethoven wrote some music for piano in 1802, and these were variations on God Save the King, which is the national anthem of Great Britain and Australia and Canada and all of the former British colonies, including the United States, because God Save the King has the same melody as My Country 'Tis of Thee, which was one of the unofficial national anthems of the United States before the Star-Spangled Banner came along. So I've taken 4 of Beethoven's variations for piano. I've added a variation that Serve did for violin and cello, and then I added some of my own pieces as well. And this is my set of variations on My Country 'Tis of Thee. Next, two great marches by John Philip Sousa. John Philip Sousa wrote 137 marches during his life, and the Washington Post March is the one that earned him the title of the March King. In 1889, the Washington Post newspaper was having a contest where their readers were supposed to send in essays that they wrote, and the newspaper would pick a winner and publish it in the paper. And they asked Sousa if he would write a victory march for when they made the final award. And he said, sure. Nobody remembers who won that contest, but everybody remembers the music that he wrote, the Washington Post March. The second march I'm going to play is the official national march of the United States. It is the Stars and Stripes Forever. And Sousa wrote this on Christmas Day in 1869 while he was coming back from a European vacation. And the march has 3 different sections, and each section represents a different part of the United States. The main melody represents the North, the piccolo solo represents the South, and the big trombone part represents the West. And when you play them all together, that's the union of the United States. I get to play all parts together on my cello. So 2 marches by John Philip Sousa. Thank you very much for tuning in today and joining me in this patriotic music. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there in person to play for you. Hopefully I'll be able to do that again soon. I'm going to end this concert as I end all of my concerts with America the Beautiful. Thank you for tuning in, and please stay healthy.